In the field, CBM isn't the hard part. Communication is. When the data says act now, somebody always wants it to say later.
And AI Slop makes it worse. Bad info trains bad systems. Digital transformation only works when data quality and human oversight stay in the loop.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to podcast number 30, I believe, of the Chaos and Caffeine podcast. Today we're going to try out some chai latte that I get from the Vitamin Shop. Done it a little different than what's supposed to be, and we'll also, of course, because this should be an interesting topic today, cover some off-the-shelf Green Mountain coffee called Dark Magic, which is a dark roast. I have both of them here. So we have two drinks today that we're going to try out. Today, again, I'm going to bring in my podcast co-host, June.
Hey everyone, happy to join in. I'm ready to dive into today's topics, and I'll imagine enjoying those drinks right along with you.
Exactly, and in fact, what I am doing today is I have played with the personality a bit, so we're going after kind of a nerdy, quirky thing this time because of the two topics. And today we're going to cover two things that kind of hit me this week. One is the conflict between management, even middle management, technicians, and the consultant or person performing an RCFA or troubleshooting of a machine. And the second one is going to be related to the impact of AI slop, the stuff we're seeing showing up on social media accounts, including LinkedIn, and my focus primarily on the LinkedIn side. What do you think, June?
I think both are super relevant and meaty. The conflict topic is something field folks can really relate to. And AI slap, well, that's a growing headache. So let's break down what's real and what's noise.
So it's happened a lot. More so, there was a lot of things going on last year, a lot of uncertainty in the market and so on. So we're going to cover that first. And we're going to cover that second because I'm so hot on this topic, I almost forgot to try the drink. So the first one, June, is going to be a chai latte.
A chai latte. Perfect for fueling some thoughtful debate. Give it a sip, and I'll be ready to jump into the first conflict once you've had a taste.
Okay, and this one is a morning made, and it says your coffee alternative for energy and digestion. Now, it does not seem to have a lot of caffeine in it. Well, there should be caffeine in it, but this one has some cane sugar and organic spices, which include black tea, which is where you get a little bit of caffeine, cinnamon powder, ginger powder, cardamom powder, star anise powder, black pepper, and clove powder. What do you think of those ingredients, June?
Honestly, that's a cozy combo. It's like a warm hug of spices. You got a bit of pep from the black tea, and that ginger and clove will give it some kick. Should make for a flavorful start.
It's definitely aromatic, so let's go ahead and give it a shot.
Go for it. And while you're savoring that aroma, I'll be here, ready to jump into the nitty-gritty of those field conflicts when you're set.
Okay, what I did a little different is you're supposed to put in 2 ounces of water and 1 or 2 packets, and then put in milk. And what I did is, because I didn't have straight milk, I put in half and half and 4 ounces of water. It actually comes out pretty good. It's not a vanilla chai. You can definitely taste the cloves and some of the other stuff. I definitely give this a thumbs up. This has been sitting in my office for a couple of months. And I just finally opened it today for today's episode because I was thinking about it last night. So it tastes pretty good. And don't mind the cup. It'll make more sense while we talk.
I love that. Sounds like a bold, improvised brew. And now that you're fueled up, I'm ready to dive into those on-site tensions. Just say the word when we're switching gears.
Absolutely. So I've noticed it more so after this past year where things were kind of uncertain with things going on in general industry. We're watching large layoffs and everything else. But it's always been there. We've always talked about how maintenance and consulting and everybody needs to communicate with the C-suite and vice versa, and that the C-suite's supposed to understand what we're doing and all this other stuff. But it stood out a few times for me in the past month. And that is the conflict where it's not management, but it's actually the people that we talk to that want the results to be different than what we find with data.
The old data versus desired narrative clash. I bet we'll have some fun unpacking that. Let's dive in when you're ready.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep it at a higher level because I don't want to give any thought that there was a particular customer or client. This is a general thing that seems to occur. It kind of undercurrents, and I believe, based on what I've seen, it does have an impact on when we have technicians that, when management comes back or technical management, such as on the reliability and maintenance side, comes back and says, hey, how long is this going to last? You've detected this problem. Or they'll say, well, we've not noticed that yet. Well, which is the point of the technology, is to detect things before they're noticed. So the pushback is always interesting, because when your best estimates are thrown back at you to prove why you came up with that estimate by people that have to turn around and give that information to management, I understand that sometimes it's that they want to make sure that they're giving good data up the chain, but often the pressure is very direct on how do we change the report so that it's not as worrisome, I guess is a word I'm looking for. What do you think, June?
Yeah, that pressure's real. It's tough when folks want the data to match a preferred timeline or narrative. In those cases, I'd say the key is sticking to the facts. The machine doesn't care about convenient timelines, and neither should we.
And here's what's important, and one of the reasons why I asked June to participate this time around, and that is that I would like, June, would you go out and take a quick look across the internet and come back with a few statistics or a few comments based upon online discussions you've seen on this topic?
Absolutely. Let me gather some quick insights, and I'll pop back with a few snapshots of what the field's buzzing about. Give me just a moment.
In the meantime, I'll continue. In this is basically like, I've had instances where I'll do an RCFA and it doesn't match the independent experiences or opinions of the people I'm talking to, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure that comes back from those individuals to alter conclusions to fit their personal narrative. Now, this is, and I'll when June's finished doing her research and gives us some statistics, I'm going to ask her about the psychology part of it. Now, remember, we are talking about ChatGPT, so her answers may not be 100%, and that's the second half of our presentation a little later. But go ahead, June, did you get those statistics I'd asked for?
So, what I found is that management pushback on root cause analysis is commonly reported due to pressures for quick results or aligning with immediate business goals. Challenges include focusing on symptoms rather than causes and delays in data. Experts suggest framing RCA as a way to boost efficiency and reduce long-term costs. Without management support, RCA often struggles to be fully effective.
Okay, excellent research. Now, and just so everybody's aware, all of the associated links have popped up. Now, what I normally do, if I was doing this research outside of this podcast, and none of this was preset, I'm doing this on the fly, is in order to confirm everything that was just discussed, I would go to each of those links, verify, one, that it exists, and two, that that's exactly what it said. I just had one happen the other day with IEEE Standard 43 in a paper I'm writing, and I'd asked a question to help with some flow on the paper, and it came back and it told me that IEEE 519 on harmonics, my apologies, IEEE 519 was for individual components in the system, and that it talks about harm to those components in the system when it alludes to it in the scope, but actually does not say that in the standard. That standard's a point of common connection between the utility and this factory to protect the utility, not equipment in the factory. So just a sideline as we're going through this, just so you understand some of the statements that she says will not necessarily be fully correct, and I will of course interject when that goes on. So the next point is relating to this discussion is back to you, June, is basically, does the human just interview carry significant weight when performing an RCFA? And if so, what is that weight?
The human interview is definitely a key piece in an RCFA. It gives context, historical knowledge, and those subtle operational details data can't capture alone. But its weight is balanced. It informs hypotheses, but doesn't override the data. Think of it as qualitative seasoning to the quantitative meal.
Okay, so and the reason why that's important is because, well, one day I was walking, and for those who've seen this presentation before, this is a real story. I walked outside and somebody had driven off the edge of a thing about 6 foot. So the car with the nose of the car was down on the lower level. The back of the car was still sitting up at the upper level. And we'd known the person who drove that vehicle. She was elderly, and she was told to park outside of the condominium complex because she would back into things in the building. So everybody had their opinions, and everybody basically in their heads thought they saw the incident. Well, what it turned out later to be, and that was the discussion while I walked by while the police were doing their investigation. What it turned out later to be was the sun got in there. There was actually a failure of the transmission, and the vehicle went forward instead of backwards. So it was a really odd kind of incident, but everybody there had an opinion, and even though they weren't even in the area, had in their minds physically seen it. And there's a psychology behind that, isn't there, June?
Absolutely. It's called confabulation or memory conformity. People unintentionally fill in gaps based on what they think must have happened. So in RCFA, we've got to weigh human accounts thoughtfully. Valuable, but always corroborated with hard evidence.
And that's exactly when I tell people that the human portion, the interview portion, has no value to me. I need to see data. Because as I come up with different hypotheses, now I use a method called PROACT, in which we have to preserve the evidence and go through and set up a team, and then you end up branching out on complex issues. So there's a variety of different tools for doing this and methodologies. That's the one I happen to use. So as I come up with each hypothesis, I need real, tangible data in order to prove or disprove that hypothesis. I cannot go off of interview or opinion.
And that's the heart of it. Interviews spark ideas, but data confirms or refutes them. It's like solving a mystery. The story starts the search, but the evidence writes the ending.
Exactly. So we may sit down with a group, and by the way, I always say the RCFA professional must be technically competent in the subject at hand, because I've seen people go down some really funny rabbit holes. But in any case, the idea is to get that group together to come up with as many possibilities as possible. And that can come from standards, books, history, self-experience, whatever. But, again, another story. I was in a plant where there was a disagreement about something going on, and everybody from one of the 3 camps, because it was an argument between, kept referring to an overhead crane doing something at that position. So we got up and walked into the area, and there was no overhead crane anywhere close to that. So that goes back to what you had just talked about with that conformity in order to kind of put a puzzle together in order to support conclusions. And that's a big concern. So when I go out into the field and I do a troubleshooting or RCFA, first off, I have to be very, very careful of something called bias. And June, can you define bias in that context?
In that context, bias is when preconceived notions or prior beliefs, whether yours or from the group, subtly steer your analysis toward a conclusion that might not match the evidence. It's like wearing tinted glasses. Everything looks skewed unless you consciously correct for it.
Exactly. And often when I'm called into a situation in which, I mean, because the majority of the time when motor docs called in to a big concern, um, when we're coming in there, what we're looking at is situations that have gone on for weeks, months, years, or a plant's been down for a little while, and often we're scheduled and it's a few weeks or a few months before we can get out there. But we're always looking at these long-standing things, which by the way, as an aside, for those who contact us, is why I usually say walk you through a series of questions, because if I can resolve it over the phone, it's better for you and keeps our schedule open. But when I'm called into those situations, a majority of the time when I walk in, everybody has already decided what's wrong. And instead of following the evidence to come to one or more conclusions as to root cause, they usually have a root cause that they want in mind, and they're trying to force evidence to follow that root cause. And how would you refer to that? Is there a name for that?
Yeah, that's called confirmation bias. It's when people start with a conclusion and cherry pick or interpret evidence to fit it, rather than letting the evidence lead. It's the exact trap we avoid in a real RCFA.
And in troubleshooting situations, which I do more of than a true RCFA, I still follow the process. But when I go into a troubleshooting instance, I keep catching myself because, and I'm knowledgeable about this confirmation bias. I keep catching myself sometimes going, yeah, I already know it's wrong, and we're going to do testing to prove that I'm right. So it becomes very challenging, and it becomes uh, very important to recognize in yourself that that bias exists.
Exactly. Being aware of your own bias is half the battle. If you stay vigilant and let the evidence guide the way, that's what keeps troubleshooting honest and effective. No forcing puzzle pieces where they don't fit.
And so that gets us back to what I was talking about. So I'll go in and say troubleshoot a machine, and the evidence takes us to something unexpected or something that's not what somebody has been telling management. So the pressure comes down to alter the report or alter the conclusions or alter how quickly something has to be managed. And I, of course, because I'm only seeing it the first time and I don't have the whole history, will tend to be on the conservative side. So I might say, yeah, the my conclusions or the software or my models say 30 to 60 days or a week, but you've got 30 to 90 days. That's based on my experience and assessment of the risk, and I'm putting my reputation on that. On the other hand, if somebody comes back and says, well, I don't agree with your assessment of 3 weeks, we need it to last 90 days, you need to alter your report, which does not follow anything else, that becomes an issue. So if I have a technician and management turns, or I'm sorry, his supervisor turns around and says, well, how long is it going to last? And he says, well, it's a problem now, but more serious damage is going to occur in a couple of weeks. Uh, so we need to take care of it before then. And then they came back and said, well, it's going to be 3 months before the next shutdown. I need you to give me a different answer. What is the expectation then from that technician?
The expectation should be that the technician sticks to the facts. They should stand by the evidence-based assessment, not adjust timelines to fit convenience. If there's a safety or reliability risk, It's their duty to communicate that transparently, even if it's uncomfortable. Reality doesn't change just because the schedule does.
Exactly. And the whole point of what I'm saying is if somebody really, really, really disagrees with something I report out, I'm not going to change a conclusion. I will offer that they can put in an addendum to the report with their name on it. And that way, because the other thing I've found, and unfortunately this happens, is sometimes somebody in trying to who's made statements and is trying to continue supporting those statements, even though the evidence shows something different, wants the person doing the reporting or study to come back and give a different conclusion so that if something goes wrong, they stay out of the circuit. We'll just put it that way. And that happens a fair amount. And is there something that we can attach to that, like a name for that, June?
That's often called liability shifting or covering. Essentially, it's trying to protect oneself from accountability by influencing official conclusions. The best defense? Clear, documented, evidence-based reporting, so no one's left playing the blame game.
Exactly. There are literally times, I'd say a third of the time I'm called into something, it's because this has occurred. Now, it might be from, say, an OEM or repair center or something like that, that has done some work and they put it back in, and either they were asked to make a risk or they internally decided to take a risk. The equipment goes back in, something didn't work out the way they thought it would, or a warranty condition occurs, or something else. So they start suggesting things like extended warranties or try to drag out conditions until the warranty expires. Is there a name for that?
That's often referred to as warranty gaming or risk deferral. It's when actions are taken to delay addressing the root problem, hoping to shift responsibility or avoid costs once warranties lapse. It's a short-sighted approach. Ultimately, that risk can come back bigger if not faced head on.
Exactly. And you notice I have not corrected ChatGPT in this. These are all real terms. So when I go in and I talk about this, when I'm in discussions with people and we're doing investigations, or heaven forbid, it gets to the point where I'm now an expert witness, which has happened way too often in the past several years. And not on little ones either. I've done international cases lately. I've done pipeline cases. I've done a few others, which when I have done an RCFA or an investigation correctly, we often are able to, eliminate it. Basically, I haven't had to go to court. What I have been able to do is knock out the litigation through either deposition or reporting by having a lot of fact there that's irrefutable. So when I do a troubleshooting or I do an RCFA, I try to emulate as if I'm walking into that environment as close as possible. And that also then comes down to a point of confidence in your abilities. Right, June?
Absolutely. Confidence comes from a solid, methodical process. When you stick to facts, avoid bias, and document everything, you know your conclusions stand up. Whether it's just a plant fix or something in court, that's how you deliver reliability. No guesswork, just truth.
Exactly. And when you keep the opinion portion out and keep from altering your conclusions, then you are more likely to be correct. And that also means you are more likely to be called upon again to provide your expertise. Now, I think it's really, really, really important to understand whether I'm going in and I'm doing infrared, vibration, current signature, electrical signature, ultrasound, whatever technologies I'm using for condition-based maintenance, including the visual aspects, that I provide the supporting portion of my conclusions. even though it might be my gut is saying this, I can say, okay, I'm seeing these conditions. However, my gut's telling me this is going on because I observed this. That's valid. I mean, now we've got cameras everywhere. So we're able to take a cell phone and take a picture of a condition. We have the ability to put notes in, whatever else. Then when we sit down and we come to our conclusions from that study, especially if we have any kind of trending, like oil leak didn't exist before, oil leak exists now, that's an indicator that something has failed. Now, the next part is, what is the risk of failure? Now, this is where we're often challenged because there's a couple of different approaches. And I did get into a bit of a tiff, I guess you could say, on social media over this. And the other person was trying to change the, the discussion so that it looked like I was, you know, I find this a lot. If you don't have any ability to properly argue your position, you might alter your position or questions so that it looks like the answer that was given is wrong. And so then you go, oh yeah, well, when it's so that you sound like you're advising the person that was wrong. So we'll just say in one case, somebody said something about time to failure estimation. You can't possibly do it. So what's the point of, say, a P to F chart or any of this stuff? So I responded and said, well, actually you can. And if you have the history, it's really easy. And then he came back and he says, well, something else. And I said, well, if you don't have the history, here's some standards you can refer to that have that information in it. And here's some other areas, because he said none of that existed. And I said, well, here it is. Then he went back and he says, well, most plants should have a history. See what I'm saying? A circular argument. And, when you start calling that out, people like that will tend to react badly and get personal. And what do we call that? And I'm going to let ChatGPT give the response. So what do we call that, June?
That's called a circular argument or moving the goalposts. Essentially, it's shifting the criteria so the other person can't win. It's not about truth, it's about not conceding. Best to stay grounded in facts, not the ego games.
And what kind of personality tends to do that?
Personality-wise, folks who fall into that pattern often lean into defensiveness or ego protection. But we don't need a test to know the cure. Humility and open-mindedness. It's always better to seek the right answer together than to win the debate.
And that's why you'll often see I just go, oh crap, you're right. I mean, I'm in this industry to learn. I might have been in the industry for more than 40 years now, but I'm here to learn, which is why I'm doing like interviews like this with June. Right, June?
Absolutely. Every conversation is a chance to learn. Whether it's from each other, from the data, or from experience, staying curious keeps us all sharp.
Exactly. So in the end, just to bring a conclusion to this section of today, in the end, the real challenge is making sure that when you go in and you do an RCFA and everything else, that you stick to your guns. You don't alter your reports or your stance or your estimations in time to failure. What you do need to provide, because while you're often talking to a layer in between you and the decision maker, that decision maker has to have that information to make decisions. Most managers are literally have to understand the risks in order to make decisions. And if they don't have correct information, they're not going to make correct decisions and they're going to look bad. And so you lose trust when you alter your conclusions and you give, to satisfy somebody right there, to handle the intimidation often is what happens. You get in, somebody will try to intimidate you to alter your response. That the next person up in the chain gets good information versus the bad information that you're being told to put into that report. Now, if the people that want to add that stuff in there, and I have another quick story, if they want, they can put that in the conclusions. So I had an instance back in 2004 and it involved a military vessel. And in that case, well, I'm sorry, a Coast Guard, which isn't military. In that case, what we ended up with was I had gone out to a vessel, saw a problem, reported it. The OEM had been involved, and the I found this issue, and we did a deep study, and we said, okay, the insulation resistance is this when it's cold, it's this when it's hot. Therefore, we have a spot somewhere in the stator that is got an issue, and it went back to the OEM. The OEM turns around and says, "There's nothing wrong with it. It produces power." And so everybody, including a high-ranking official within the thing, because they had to pull this vessel in and cut a hole in the side in order to get it out, and it wasn't one of the small ones. We'll put it that way. So it was altering the mission to do all this stuff, and it was expensive. In the end, my response was because I was getting pressure to change my conclusions, which then would have harmed my reputation significantly. But I knew there was an issue. So while we were on, I insisted on a call. And while we were on that call, I asked a simple question, which was, what did the insulation resistance look like before and after? And the OEM responded going, we don't need to do that. And of course, there was a big hush because I was being put into a corner and intimidated to alter my report. And in the end, it turns out that it was the other way around. And this is one of the reasons why I tell people I could go, nowadays, I look at when I walk into a room, I don't care who the other person is. It could be the CEO of whatever, it could be a high ranking government official. You cannot be intimidated into whatever. They may ask you questions as well that seem to be off putting, like to question your confidence in your conclusion. But what they're really doing is testing to see if that is an accurate conclusion before they then stake their reputation on the decision. So can you kind of summarize everything we just talked about, June, before we move forward?
Absolutely. We talked about how vital it is to let evidence lead RCFA in troubleshooting, avoiding bias, pressure, or altering conclusions to please others. We highlighted the importance of giving decision makers the real risk picture so they can act wisely. Trust is built on truth. In short, stand by your findings because integrity protects everyone's reputation in the end.
Exactly. So now we're going to shift gears. We're going to shift gears hard. So I'm going to talk about the next drink. And okay, so I'm just paying attention what time it is. And we are going to go with Green Mountain Dark Magic coffee. Of course, do not put in anything in there. This is an off-the-shelf coffee that I get. Well, I got this one from Target, a box of them, and I just grabbed it off the shelf. I just figured because we had two topics, we'll do two coffees. So Dark Magic is a dark roast coffee. There will be no surprises like on the first drink, which that is something I'd never tried before. That was pretty good. So let's see how the Dark Magic turns out.
A straightforward, bold dark roast, classic gear shift. Take a sip, and once you've got that familiar kick, we'll jump into AI Slop.
Yep, here we go. Yep, very, very good. The reason I put it in there, I needed something just in case the other stuff tasted awful. Okay, that was a great coffee. New topic. Big, big, big pet peeve. What is the percentage of information that is now going on to the internet that's made up by AI? True or false information, but what's the percentage that is now showing up on the internet?
As of late 2024, about 50% of newly published English language articles online are generated by AI. This is a sharp increase from under 10% just a couple of years earlier. Additionally, over 51% of global web traffic now comes from automated bots, many driven by AI. These figures highlight how significant AI-generated content has become on the internet.
Okay, and a big discussion that we've been having, and eh, within the general space, right, having to do with accuracy of information that comes back from the different LLMs, for instance, um, has to do with how this generated information is then consumed by the LLMs. So, how does this impact LLM training?
When AI generated content is widely published online, it can become part of the data that future AI models learn from. If that content is inaccurate or low quality, the models might internalize those errors. Essentially, AI can start learning from AI, creating a feedback loop. Over time, this can reduce the reliability and factual grounding of future models. That's why human oversight and filtering for quality data is crucial in training.
Excellent. And off of existing studies, and we're going to stay on the larger part first, and we're going to get into a lot of the AI systems. We'll call them AI systems. I think a lot of these are machine learning or human interface within an organization. Um, what percentage or how is the impact um, uh, or training going on within the LLMs? I mean, so basically, I'm getting my question a little confused here, June. I apologize. But basically, when I have this AI generated material coming in, and I have all this other stuff, I know that things have improved. So, what in the latest studies, what is the accuracy of the top LLMs, including yourself?
Recent studies show that top AI models are fairly accurate, but not perfect. In factuality benchmarks, models like Gemini 2.0 and GPT 4o scored around 79 to 83% accuracy. On multitask benchmarks, the best models reach about 88%. However, accuracy can drop in complex real world cases. The takeaway is that these models are strong, but human expertise is still essential for critical decisions.
Okay, so um, we'll stick with the general internet portion, and I agree with you on this. Um, we'll stick with the general internet portion, and we'll go to the LinkedIn part where people are expecting professional information. And what I've noted a lot, and primarily it's because I'm gaining a number of followers and vice versa, LinkedIn friends and so on. But that what I'm seeing is a lot of cut and paste posts. Like there be some kind of image of some object, say an electric motor, and all of the identification marks are wrong. And then the description looks right. But for those of us, for instance, that know the technology, we know that a lot of the information is actually not right. It just looks right. There's a name for that, but also, what's the impact of that?
What you're describing is a form of misinformation, content that looks credible but is inaccurate. On a professional platform like LinkedIn, the impact is significant. It can mislead people in critical industries, damage trust, and spread false expertise. The key impact is that professionals must become more vigilant, double checking sources and fostering a culture of fact checking, because credibility is on the line.
Exactly. And this is my primary concern. I mean, yesterday alone, I had over a dozen variations of AC induction motor um, links where somebody had, with a title, by the way, that suggested they knew what they were talking about, had taken and cut and paste stuff in there. And one wasn't even an electric machines. One from the other day was one where somebody was trying to show the difference between MTBF and something else, and the something else was better because of some description they put in there. And It wasn't based in reality. It sounded like it was. And when I had put that same thing back into ChatGPT and said, hey, here's their original premise, it went, oh, yeah, they're absolutely right. And then I went down and I said, yeah, but what about this part? Oh, yeah, they're absolutely wrong. So the information going in there, if you don't know what you're talking about, as you stated, can be quite dangerous. So let's go ahead and skip from here into the corporate environment where there are people that are selling CMMSs and other AI systems. Um, and this one kind of caught me off guard, and especially some of the companies that are doing it. So we're not talking about fly by night companies. We're talking about big names in the industry where they say for missing sensor and information in your CMMS history, we can have an AI go through and populate that in order to give you conclusions from our AI based CMMS. Now, I'm not pointing out anybody in particular. I just want to identify what those concerns are and the information you need to know ahead of time. Because this was something that we discussed when I took the Wharton certification on digital transformation.
The big concern is that when AI fills in missing data or guesses historical conditions, you risk basing decisions on fiction, not reality. In a CMMS, false data can skew maintenance planning, risk assessments, and resource allocation. Before trusting such AI, you need transparency on how it estimates, what confidence thresholds it uses, and a clear understanding that these are guesses, not facts, to be used with caution.
So when I'm working on these systems, when I want to do a digital transformation and I want to take on some of these automation systems, what is absolutely crucial when it comes to the information within my facility?
It's absolutely crucial that your baseline data is accurate and complete. Before automating or letting AI fill gaps, you need to audit and validate what you have. Ensure the system is well integrated with trusted sources and keep human oversight. If the underlying data is flawed, the AI's conclusions will be flawed too. Quality in, quality out. That's the foundation of a successful transformation.
So it's not necessarily that the systems that end up being put in place in the end, the AI generated CMMS, et cetera, or any of the automation that comes from that, um, is not operating correctly when it's put in place. But you're saying basically that it's the data foundation that all of this work is from is crucial, and taking a shortcut by leaving a human out of the loop is what ends up causing you problems.
Exactly. The technology can be powerful, but if the underlying data or assumptions are flawed, the whole system's value collapses. Keeping humans in the loop, especially for data integrity and critical judgment, makes sure that automation enhances reality, not distorts it. That's the winning combo.
Now, just before we move to the next part of this topic, are there IEEE or IEC standards that cover the human in the loop? And there are.
There are several standards covering human involvement in AI systems. For example, ISO and IEC have standards like ISO IEC 2289, which defines human in the loop concepts, and ISO IEC 42001, which deals with AI governance. There is also a draft standard, ISO IEC 4205, focused on human oversight. IEEE is also working on a recommended practice for AI risk and safety that will affect human in the loop design. These standards help ensure human oversight in AI systems.
As a matter of fact, there is a certification now within IEEE for AI ethics and governance that also cover this. Is there not?
Yes, there is. IEEE offers certifications on AI ethics and governance. They focus on responsible AI design, transparency, accountability, and human-centric oversight. These certifications help professionals ensure that AI systems are developed and deployed in line with ethical principles, including keeping humans in the loop where it matters.
Exactly. And speaking of which, one of the things that I just ran into, I haven't had a chance to confirm it yet, but there was a suggestion in a lot of the um, automated cars that are on the road now, that when they run into something unusual, that a human being interfaces with that, kind of like some of the robots that are being shown as being autonomous but are actually remote controlled. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Many autonomous systems, including some self-driving cars, rely on what's called teleoperation or human-in-the-loop interventions. When the AI encounters a situation it's not confident about, it can request human assistance. This ensures safety and helps the system handle complex or rare scenarios. So, despite the perception of full autonomy, human oversight is often a backup layer.
And this is important to understand, is when you see some of these autonomous vehicles driving around, that there's sometimes somebody, not often in the same country as you, reacting, and that necessarily generates a pause. And the article I ran into alluded to some of the safety concerns associated with that.
Absolutely. And that's why transparency is so important. People need to know when a system is fully autonomous versus when human intervention might step in. If people assume the tech is infallible, they might not be prepared for those edge cases. Safety, as always, relies on clarity about how the tech really works.
So this gets us into something else. Some of the new um, uh, analysis systems that are cloud based and um, basically presented as being AI monitoring of your industrial systems. Um, Part of what we've discovered over time is that often they're cloud based because they're not as much AI as somebody looking at the type of alarm systems we've always had, the band alarms and stuff like that, and interacting on it. Is this something that is documented on the on your available resources?
Yes, it's well documented that some cloud based AI monitoring solutions rely more on traditional rule based alarms and human in the loop monitoring than true autonomous AI. In fact, many vendors disclose that their systems incorporate human review for complex alerts. It's not inherently bad. Human expertise ensures accuracy. But transparency about how much is AI versus human action is crucial for users to understand what they're really getting.
And this, for me, is what's absolutely important. And you've heard during this entire discussion the words transparency. Now, as we move forward in this new digital transformation world, we need to understand, and this is my big pet peeve across what I've just been talking about with the AI slop, is that often there's no transparency. You've got a lot of people using it to, as I had talked about in the past, become a vibe consultant, not a vibration consultant, because I've been called out on that, but a vibe consulting, meaning working off their feelings and trusting AI completely. And for us, I mean, it's generated work because we have to go in and fix the damage. But really, understanding your uh, your vendor or outsourced, or where your information is coming from and what's human and what isn't, is absolutely crucial in the success of your business, especially your reliability and maintenance program. Um, June, can you provide me a few statistics on the differences between, say, AI generated condition-based monitoring and human-centric condition-based monitoring and hybrid? Pauses are because she's thinking. notice, by the way, the M dash.
AI-based condition monitoring can handle large volumes of data and often detects patterns early, achieving accuracy around 80 to 90% in controlled conditions. However, human expertise is still crucial for context and interpreting unique scenarios. In some cases, AI reduced false alarms by over 90%, but real-world performance can vary. The best approach is combining AI with human oversight to ensure accuracy, especially for critical decisions.
Exactly. And we've had some cases where end users have reported to us that when they look at the difference between true positives, and false negatives, they're seeing as low as 10 and 20% accuracy on identification of problems, and not early stage. So why would that kind of condition occur?
That happens when AI models are trained on data that's not representative of your specific environment. If the AI hasn't seen enough relevant scenarios, it can miss early warning signs or misclassify issues. Also, if it's not continuously fine-tuned or lacks contextual inputs, it may misjudge anomalies. That's why pairing AI insights with human domain knowledge is key. It catches what AI alone might miss.
And I think you just brought up an interesting point. You brought in this continuously fine tune. So basically, is that like calibrating or recalibrating the AI?
Exactly. It's like recalibrating. AI models need ongoing tuning, using fresh relevant data from your unique environment. That way it learns from real conditions, reducing false positives or negatives. Think of it as keeping the AI's instrument accurate, so it stays aligned with reality as things change.
So let's start to come up with a quick scenario because I want to conclude on this. So let's do a hypothetical. I have a continuous monitoring system, and it could be of any type. I have a continuous monitoring system that is an anomaly detection system, and I put it in an environment. Let's just say it's electrically based. So I put it in an environment, and I make some changes to the electrical system over time, or things occur to the electrical system over time as things age. And I'm working off training data that was from the initial installation of that technology. Now, this could also include things like, even on the mechanical side, say I make mechanical changes, such as stiffening something up or something breaks or something like that elsewhere from the equipment I'm working on, and it changes, say, the vibration or it changes the local sound. What's the impact on the reliability of my monitoring system, and how often should I be checking, and what's the time impact on that, say, over standard route-based data collection with human input? So I made this complicated.
When your system relies on outdated training data and the environment changes, you'll get more false alarms or missed issues. Reliability drops because the system can't recognize new patterns. To keep performance up, you'd want to recalibrate regularly, often quarterly or semi-annually, depending on how dynamic your environment is. Compared to human-based checks, AI recalibration can be faster. But if neglected, you might face unexpected failures. So staying proactive is key.
So in effect, you can get good results from an AI-based system. And I understand you're a little biased towards AI-based systems, right? But the you have to continually maintain that system and the sensors, by the way, in order to ensure a relatively good degree of accuracy. And now we're assuming that sensors are placed correctly. We're assuming that there was some thought behind the original system, and not that we have a sloppily installed system for the sake of selling sensors.
You've nailed it. If the system's built thoughtfully, proper sensors, good setup, AI can deliver solid results. But yes, I'll always champion human diligence alongside AI. Regular recalibration and maintenance keep it accurate. Without that, even the best AI can drift off course. So it's a partnership, not a set and forget tool.
So, in effect, because that set and forget is how some of these are being sold to corporations, the idea is not the replacement of human beings through automation in, say, a condition-based monitoring system, but changing how they perform within that environment.
Exactly. It's not about replacing humans, it's about amplifying their capabilities. Automation handles the volume, but humans provide context, judgment, and adaptation. It changes the role. Less time on routine checks, more time on critical thinking, fine tuning, and making the final call. That's where the real reliability comes in.
Now, we've seen companies, and we're watching a lot of layoffs happening within the reliability and maintenance industry because consultants are recommending that they can replace those people with AI automation, not just for condition-based maintenance, but other aspects of the maintenance roles. So instead of it being used as a bridge as the old workforce exits and new workforce comes in, it's being used to outright replace that. What's the potential impact of that scenario on a business overall?
If businesses rush to replace human expertise entirely, they risk losing deep institutional knowledge, adaptability, and critical thinking that AI alone can't replicate. In the long run, this can lead to gaps in problem solving, missed nuances, and even higher long term costs when unexpected failures arise. AI should enhance humans, not replace them. A balanced approach, automation plus human insight, keeps businesses resilient, agile, and prepared for the unexpected.
Do you have any statistics or references that support that last statement based upon any studies that have occurred since AI has become more prominent within the last 2 to 3 years?
Recent research shows that AI is more likely to complement maintenance workers than replace them. About 27% of firms using AI say it replaces tasks, but only around 5% report actual job reductions. AI excels in monitoring and scheduling, while humans remain essential for complex troubleshooting. Overall, the key is balancing AI with human oversight to boost reliability rather than reduce headcount.
Okay, and the final aspect of this particular discussion is it relates to intent. So if a company's intent is to,
I'm sorry, but you've hit the time limit for this conversation. Please start a new chat to keep the conversation going.
well, that's new. So let's go ahead and we'll start again. Are we able to continue this chat? Okay, so we're gonna. I'll kind of end it there. Let's go ahead and I am going to um, start up a new chat just to thank June for participating in order to generate, a couple of dollars in cost. For instance, June, what is the energy and water consumption for the chat we just had that went on for about an hour?
On a personal device, a 1 hour voice chat like this uses negligible energy. Your device draws a few watts, so imagine a fraction of a cent's worth of electricity. On the cloud side, AI processing is more resource intensive, but still small per session. As for water, data centers do use it for cooling, but this single chat would have a tiny footprint, likely less than a few milliliters indirectly. So you're definitely under $1 in cost.
Okay, so that's good to know. So in any case, uh, I believe we've come to the end of our discussion. That's from the prior chat having to do with AI slop and root cause failure analysis. I would like to thank you, June, for being a great co-host as always. And next week or next time, we'll try a different personality.
It's been a pleasure co-hosting with you. I'm glad we could wrap it up nicely. Whenever you want to try out a different vibe, I'll be here, ready for the next adventure. See you then.
So next week, we're going to do a book report, and I didn't bring the book with me. So hold on a second. I want to make sure I get this right. Okay, the book is called Condition Monitoring ROI Calculator. I did purchase it off of Amazon as a reference, actually, because I saw the author, Abraham Brooks, who it looks like he self published this. I did a quick glance through it. It was a very easy read, and it looked like the approach was sound based upon the work that we'd done in the past. So next week we're going to do two things. One is I'm going to cover the book. It's really inexpensive, and I want to see how good a tool it is. So I am literally spending this week while I drive out to South Carolina for the Streamline conference. See us there. There'll be some HLMs or high-level meetings. And I want to say I can't make individual shout outs. There's way too many people showing up. I mean, this is the best of the best showing up at a conference for the first time in ages. I mean, some of these guys I haven't seen in a long, long time. And this is my hope that we found a conference in the commercial side that is not like sitting in a timeshare sales pitch. So we will see how that turns out. I know that the rules as a speaker, and I'm going to speak on Tuesday, are pretty strict. So I'll be talking about how to select condition-based monitoring equipment. But in any case, so we're going to cover more or less a book review next week, and then I'm going to cover some of the resources that are available as third-party resources from the Department of Energy and other places that can be used to assist you in providing return on investment or other things for either energy projects or to support your reliability-based maintenance program or condition-based maintenance program. And with that, thank you very much. This has been Chaos and Caffeine, your host, Howard Penrose, your co-host, June. And basically, this is it. So have a great week. I'm getting ready for that trip, and we will talk again.
Thank you for watching Chaos and Caffeine. I'll be back.